Okay, so today I'm going to walk through doing product entitlements with the feature flag system. Wrote a blog post on this. There was also a great conversation on Hacker News after a post by this fellow Arnon, who is brilliant at this stuff. Both of those are pretty interesting. But we're going to walk through and do it from first principles, and we'll pull some of those elements in as we go. What is a product entitlement? That's a good place to start. A product entitlement is any time that in your code you want to do something like this. You say product enabled and then the reporting feature, right? And you want to do something like this. You want to do one thing if it's enabled and one thing if it's not. And a product entitlement is when the answer to this question can only be answered knowing whether the user is on the basic or the pro or the enterprise plan, what SKUs they have purchased. That is product entitlement. The other pieces of the puzzle are authorization. Does my user have RBAC style access to this feature? Have I been turned on in my organization for it? And then the other piece would be feature flags. Has this been rolled out to me yet? Is this currently on? Has it been kill switched, etc.? So those are the three major pieces of the overall question. Is enabled? Can I do this thing? But the piece we're going to look at today is product entitlement, which is the pieces that are tied to the billing or SKU plan that the user or team has. So you can get into a bunch of trouble with this trying to model it. The easiest system would be to say, have a very simple feature flag that says reporting feature is true or false based on the plan. But then, of course, things happen where you want a salesperson to be able to demo it, or you want to change your pricing over time. And it can become quite awkward to go through and change lots of different places in the code or other things like that. The very simplest thing we could do, we could say if the user team tier equals enterprise, do this. But this is going to lead to all sorts of challenges down the road. So to set this up, let's start building out sort of a straw person of the context that we think we'll have. So I'm going to do this in application controller, and I am going to add a little, let's call it context here. And I'm going to add a method called context. And let's just start sketching this out. We're going to have some things like a user. Let's say they have got a key. Let's just for now, let's call them 1, 2, 3. And now let's get to the interesting bit. I'm going to propose that we do a plan like this. So this is basically the SKU here. And then it's all of the pieces of the SKU are broken down out into their own particular fields. I've stolen this from Arnon here, who says, design your pricing tools so you can adapt them later. And this is a great blog post worth reading. He has the example anatomy of a SKU that will be scalable and will work for us going forward. You can see the different elements SKUs are often different by country code, by different products, the particular product ID, which will give you flexibility when people have multiple SKUs, different payment terms, which may or may not have effects on the entitlements here, and then the really all-important revisions column, because we're going to build in from the beginning that we are expecting these things to change. So with this context, we actually have a pretty good place to start. And I think now is the time to start building out some sort of trial applications of this context. We're quickly going to install Prefab Cloud Ruby as our feature flag provider here. And we'll create a workspace here. I'm going to create an SDK key and we'll initialize. All right. And when we reload, we should run the server. All right. Now in production, we have this flag here is set to true. Okay. So that is just a test. All right. So now let's send this context that we've got over to Prefab. We can do it still with a static context here, but it will just be useful. We'll start populating some data over in Prefab, and that will help us create our flags and play around with things. So now when we reload, we'll start to see that we have these contexts over here. So you can see 3 different contexts came in. There's the user and the team and the plan. They're both separate, but also visible together here. And we can see that the user Bob here is true. That's because it matches our simple rule, which says true there. So I'm going to make up a feature here. I'm going to have it's a true false feature. It's can the user do smart send times? That's like a feature that is only available on Pro and Enterprise. It's not available on the Basic. So I can save that, and we will add rules here. We'll say that it is true when the plan tier is one of Basic or Enterprise. Excellent. And now we can get our code sample here, and let's put this into the code. We can say smart send times, and we'll reload this. It's set to false. And of course that is false because we have hard coded this here to be on the starter plan. But if we change things over so that we're going to say if we make it the enterprise plan and reload, we will see that they now have this smart send times feature. So that's all well and good. Of course, one thing that often happens is that a salesperson will be on the phone with someone who is on the starter tier. And let me just change this because I mistyped previously. Sales is talking to someone who is on the starter plan and wants to show them this thing immediately, right? So let's pretend that's the case here. We'll say this is user 999 is Kathy, and we will say that she is on the starter. We'll reload, and we'll see that it's false. Then we can go in to context, and we'll now see that Kathy is in here. When we click on Kathy, we can see that she is getting false for the smart times feature. This is because it's matching here. She is not in the tier. What we can do, though, is we can say that Kathy needs to be in it right now and say publish. When we reload, Kathy will be in it. And you can see the reason is because we put a user override for this particular user key. So this gives our salespeople the ability to go in, quickly find the customer they're working with, and turn on a feature for them. Of course, the next wrinkle is that your salesperson may want to turn on more than one feature. They may have to turn on 5 or 10 or 15 features to give them the entire enterprise experience just for the purpose of that sales call. And doing it one at a time like this is going to be error prone and a bit of a pain in the butt. So let's get rid of doing it this style, and let's create a new segment here as in currently demoing. Whoops. We create this segment, and this is just going to be a rule that just either matches or doesn't match. So we will say when the user email is one of Kathy at example.com. All right. Now we've got Kathy here. Kathy is in the demo. And when we go to our flag, we'll change the rules here. We'll change the rules here. We're going to delete this rule, that particular override, and we're going to add a new one here that says that it is true when the segment is currently demoing. All right. We're going to put that one up at the top. We're going to put that one up at the top. That is the order in which the flags will be evaluated, and this one should take precedence. Okay, we'll save and publish, and we should see that I put Kathy at Corp here. Let's change the segment. I'll put the wrong here. All right, there, Kathy at Food Corp. We'll publish that, and now Kathy is indeed in this here. The nice thing about this is that we could create multiple features. We could create 10 or 20 different features that just have this true when segment matches currently demoing. And then the salesperson only needs to add somebody to this list or remove them from this list, and they'll be getting all of those features together. Okay, so that's a common curveball, is trying to solve this demo experience and making sure that you can flexibly give out entitlements, that you can do that in a sort of sane way so it's quite clear. One of the nice things, of course, is if we go to Kathy and we're confused about anything, we can again hover over this and see that why this matches here. Let's move on to another common type of entitlement, which is when we have an entitlement that is an integer value. It's a limit. It's how many emails can you send. So let's add one. We'll call it features.how many emails, and it'll be an int. All right, we're going to say that you can be either 100, 500, or 5,000. And here we'll say that in Enterprise, it's 5,000, and it is 500 when the plan tier Pro. All right, so that will do a fine job. We can copy over our code sample again here just to sanity check ourselves. And we've got 100 emails. Now, the next challenge that might come our way is that we actually want to modify these plans. We think that most people are only sending 400 emails. And so we would really prefer them to be in the enterprise tier. So we're getting a little greedy. We want to reduce the number of emails on the pro tier. But of course, some people are already in this pro tier and were promised 500. So we only want to do it for new subscriptions going forward. So this is where we're going to be thankful that we actually have versions here, right? So let's say the new version will be 1 here of the Pro. Make these things line up here. And let's go in and model this so we can say that we'll add a rule. We'll add a fixed rule here. And we'll say when the plan tier is Pro and plan version is 0. This is the one we want to fix. I'll say save, and we need to add another variant here. Let's add a 300. So we've added 300 here, and now we'll change this regular pro tier to be 300. Okay, so now we've pinned our legacy accounts here to 500, but new accounts will be getting 300. I think I set up the context correctly. Perhaps I didn't. We're getting 500. Pro plan 0. So I confused myself, but good news is this is just a test of the system here now. We'll say, why is this happening? And if we go into contexts, it's probably because I didn't publish. All right. Of course, if I had been confused for some other reason, then the thing to do would have been to go in here and again see how many emails does Kathy have. All right, of course, the other things we could do, this is a powerful feature flag system here. So you could also do a percentage rollout. We could do a 50-50 split here and then send events based on which side of the bucket they fit into here. We'll also see evaluation charts here of what variants we're actually seeing in production. That can be useful. And this actually gives us the flexibility to see, even while there were multiple plan changes happening, we can see the config ID that things matched here and figure out so we can figure out just exactly what is happening in production. Been in that sort of crossover zone when we were switching from one config to another, or as we were updating. It'll show you the rules even on the historical plans in this evaluation chart. If you have one takeaway from this, my advice would be to really think about the context that you have up front, to spend a little bit of time modeling it like this, and then create a really simple account here, make a bunch of feature flags, and just play with it. Make sure you can work through a couple different scenarios. You really don't need to even deploy this anywhere. You can just do this locally, and you're going to get a nice feel for whether or not you've got the appropriate context available in your app. Of course, you would want to make this sort of dynamic to really test it out based on your actual data. But then you're also mostly going to be able to figure out what naming schemes and what segments you'd like in order to flesh out a product entitlement system inside your feature flag system that is really going to work for you. Thanks, and good luck. Please hit me up if you want to discuss.